Everybody, it's your boy Charles. We are checking out Gangsters of Harlem. It's a really good audio book. You can check it out on Audible. We are checking out chapter 9. Go ahead, hit that thumbs up button, and I'm going to come back with my reaction. Subscribe to the channel.
Hanging out with older hoods, Peewee would end up robbing stores, running numbers, financing criminal activities, and pushing drugs. Before I graduated from high school, I graduated from petty crime to the big time, lending money for drug deals, Kirkland recalled. It was okay, I told myself, because I was only doing it to get my folks out of the ghetto. And I did. I moved them out of Harlem to a nice house on Coney Island. Kirkland has been vague about many of the details of his criminal career, largely because of his belief in the code of the streets. For instance, he has never publicly named the mysterious Jewish friend who taught him about the antique and luxury car business. Kirkland told Feds magazine, "I couldn't and wouldn't tell you the people who influenced me or introduced me to the game." But he has given us a glimpse of his criminal world. "I got involved with Jews, Italians at such an early age that I understood what quick liquidity meant," he revealed. "So I know how to invest money real quickly and turn money around, and learn to understand the value of Sherlocking and lending money to people for profit. Lend a person $100,000, and in 30 days get back $150,000. I became the Bank of Harlem. People wouldn't go to banks for money. They came to me. That's how I became successful." According to Kirkland, he got started by stealing medallions and selling them for $15 before moving into banking, which involved dealing with bonds that were supposed to be non-negotiable. Kirkland also learned the business of money laundering and how to hide his money offshore so the law couldn't find it. Eventually, he entered the diamond business and was the only black in Harlem to own a jewelry store. Still in his teens, Kirkland had more money than he knew what to do with, and the lifestyle it gave made him a prominent and popular figure in Harlem. A stylish dresser, he drove a Rolls-Royce, often crowded with beautiful women, and loved to flash a lot of jewelry. He later recalled wearing a $373,000 king's crown engraved with Peewee and a $70,000 tie, monogrammed with PK. One pinky finger had a 15-carat marquise-cut diamond, and the other a 17-carat emerald. In the tradition of the Harlem gangster, Peewee was known to be generous with his money and claimed to have given back millions to the community. He chartered buses to take his friends to parties at his Long Island mansion, which contained 26 rooms and had an elevator that could take a person from the bedroom to the kitchen. For a Muhammad Ali fight, Kirkland bought hundreds of tickets for his friends and associates at $500 a pop, chartered planes to transport them to the venue, and put them up in expensive hotels. According to one source who knew Peewee during those formative years, people tend to hang around him because he was such a celebrity. Peewee made 116th and Lenox Avenue his headquarters. According to Kirkland, "In the history of Harlem drug dealing, you can't leave out Lenox at 116th Street. It was the capital of the drug market. More people came there to buy drugs than the number of people who went to Madison Square Gardens to see the Knicks." Unlike most youngsters growing up in the ghetto, Peewee had a special talent that could have changed his life's direction. At about 6'1", sleek and athletic, Peewee, when not pursuing his criminal activities, was forging a reputation on the basketball court. Indeed, Peewee was often mentioned in the same breath as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Julius Dr. J. Irving, Nate Archibald, and some of the other great players who graced the court in the 1960s and 70s. Peewee later acknowledged that even though his gangster life brought him riches and street respect, basketball was his passion in life. In fact, according to Kirkland, Basketball meant more than education. It meant more than my girlfriend. It meant more than anything. For a boy growing up in Harlem in the 1960s, the biggest thing in the world was basketball, and Rucker Park, located on 155th Street and Frederick Douglass Boulevard, was the sports epicenter. The park was named in honor of Holcomb Rucker, a teacher, coach, and father figure to some of New York City's great hoopsters.
Hit that thumbs up button, guys. Hit that thumbs up button. Let's continue on.
When Rucker saw what crime was doing to Harlem's kids, he started his annual tournament in the summer of 1950 to keep them off the street and out of trouble. Rucker died in 1965 at age 38, but in subsequent years, the tournament grew to become legendary. Rucker was the first one to use basketball and education together, Jerlina Rhodes noted in Harlem Live, a Harlem youth internet publication. Rucker got guys who were in groups and in the street to play. They also had to go to school and do homework. In Kirkland's youth, the Rucker tournament was the place where NBA players came to test their skills against street legends, most of whom would never play a minute in the NBA. Over the years, the NBA roster has included Bill Bradley, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Earl Monroe, Dr. J, Stephon Marbury, Joe Smith, Kevin Garnett, and Ron Artest. The street legends who came to Rucker to challenge the NBA stars bore colorful monikers. There was Earl the Goat Manigault, a 6'2" jumping jack with a 52-inch vertical leap. Hundreds of colleges courted him, but he eventually turned to heroin, and his life went through a needle. Joe the Destroyer Hammond, who once scored 50 points in a half playing against NBA Hall of Famer Dr. J, was offered an NBA contract, but turned it down because it did not have a no-cut clause. Hammond, too, turned to drugs and wound up serving time in prison. Lloyd Sweet Pea Daniels had enough talent and skill to be described as a cross between NBA stars Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, but drug possession kept him out of college. He couldn't stay out of trouble and eventually was shot. Although he recovered, Sweet Pea never did realize his potential. James the Fly William actually made it to college, leading the nation in scoring as a freshman at Austin Peay College, but he took part in a robbery and was shot, losing half of his lungs. Peewee often played at Rucker. He noted, "The pros played in the NBA for salary. They played in Rucker to prove they were real. You could talk about it all year long, but it did not mean anything until you had done it at Rucker. The streets were crowded for 5 blocks. People would watch from the highway overpass. People would hang from trees. Some would use binoculars to watch from the projects." On the court, Peewee was nicknamed Stickman. "I had so many moves, I made the other guys look like they were stuck to the court," recalled Kirkland. Stickman was also considered the original master of the crossover dribble, and according to Vincent M. Malozzi, a Rucker tournament historian, he is believed to be the first player in New York City to perform a 360-degree turn on a move to the basket. The cocky and confident gangster showed up at Rucker in a white convertible Rolls-Royce, wearing fur-trimmed basketball shorts. But once he stepped on the court, he could play with the best. Peewee led the tournament in scoring in 1970 and 1971. In describing his style on the court, one writer wrote, "Kirkland wasn't satisfied with just a single crossover move. He wasn't satisfied with your basic hesitation fake. No. Oftentimes, Kirkland wasn't happy until he executed a stutter step, triple reverse fake, head fake, between the legs, behind the back crossover hesitation move that would make not only his defender's legs lock, but the other 4 defensive players stick to the ground as well." From 1968 to 1971, Kirkland squared off against Nate Tiny Archibald, a future NBA Hall of Famer, who was voted one of the 50 great basketball players of the 20th century. By all accounts, Peewee held his own. Their games were more like events. Each player brought out hordes of fans, and the atmosphere was electric. In assessing his opponents, Archibald recalled, "While I think Joe Hammond was maybe the best offensive player ever to come out of the playgrounds, I seriously believe that Peewee was the best all-around player. I was fortunate to grow up in New York City because I got to play against guys like Peewee and Joe." In Vincent Malozzi's oral history of the Rucker tournament, Peter Vesey, a noted basketball columnist and television commentator, recalled how Peewee would bring a satchel to Rucker and put it under a bench before he played. "People used to say, Peewee had a gun in that satchel," Vesey told Malozzi. "So whenever he argued a call against my team, I'd always say, 'Yeah, maybe you're right, Peewee. Maybe you did get fouled on that play.'" One source, who grew up in Harlem with Peewee, also recalled what the gangster used to bring to Rucker. "Peewee always had a lot of people around him," the source explained. "One time I was at Rucker Park and Peewee was playing for a team called Millbank, which was..."
Looking for a professional photographer for your next big event? Need video of your special day? Then look no further. For $100 an hour, have a professional photographer or videographer shoot your wedding, birthday party, quinceañera, bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, anniversary party, or whatever your special occasion may be. Highlight your event with professional, crisp photos and video. Check out Charles Arness Photography on Instagram, as well as book us for your next event. Must live in the Southern California area.
Sponsored by a community center in West Harlem and featured some of the top players in the city. Peewee was doing his thing, shaking and baking, and he made a move on a guy who pushed Peewee. It was probably accidental, but Peewee fell down. Many of Peewee's entourage were in the stands. The next thing you know, several of them jumped up, and it looked as if they were going to pull out their guns. Then Peewee raised his hand as if to say, "No." His men sat down, and the game continued. Peewee was the type of guy you did not mess with. People, including his fellow hoopsters, were aware of Peewee's gangster reputation, but they still respected him. "I've known Peewee for maybe 40 years, and I used to play against him here in New York and in Philadelphia," Earl the Pearl Monroe, a former New York Knick and Basketball Hall of Famer, told one cyber magazine. "I always admired him," Julius Irving recalled. "Peewee just dazzled people." Given Peewee's prodigious athletic talents, basketball gave him a chance to get an education and escape the ghetto life. It looked like Peewee would take advantage of the opportunity. He graduated from Charles Evans Hughes High School in 1964, earning all city honors in basketball as a point guard, and enrolled in Kittrell Junior College in Henderson, North Carolina. Spending a year in the rural South at a church-supported institution was quite a change for Kirkland, the street-smart ghetto legend, but Stickman did not miss a beat on the court. Kirkland led the nation in scoring, averaging 41 points per game. He then transferred to Norfolk State University, a historically black institution in Norfolk, Virginia. Basketball games at Norfolk were played in a virtual matchbox that served as the gym, and students kept score on a blackboard, erasing and rewriting as the score changed. Kirkland teamed with future NBA star Bob Dandridge, and they became one of the most exciting Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside duos in college basketball. Sports Illustrated described Kirkland as possibly the fastest guard in college basketball. He earned all small college NCAA honors, as he led his school to a 25-2 record and the 1968 CIAA championship. When the NBA's Chicago Bulls drafted Peewee in 1969, it looked as if he had a good shot at pursuing a pro basketball career. Peewee was used to having his way on the court as well as the street, but this was professional, not street basketball, which meant he had to listen to a coach who made the decisions. Peewee thought he had won a starting position in training camp, but Bulls coach Dick Motta disagreed.
Hit that thumbs up button. Hit that thumbs up button, guys. Let's continue on.
Kirkland thought he had no choice but to pull up stakes and head back to Harlem. Besides, he figured it was a good move financially. After all, the $40,000 salary he would have received for playing 2 years in the NBA was pocket change compared to what he was making as a drug trafficker. After failing to capitalize on another opportunity with the San Diego Rockets of the now defunct American Basketball Association, he continued to play and star in the Rucker tournament. His talents and exploits caught the attention of Red Holtzman, coach of the New York Knicks, who in 1971 invited Peewee to try out with his team. It looked like Peewee still had a chance to play in the NBA. But a few days later, his life took a dramatic turn.
Whoa, man. So we're going to continue on with this. If y'all want to hear more from this book, subscribe to the channel. I've heard they had a show back in the day on BET called I think it was called American Gangsters. And I believe it was narrated by Vin Rames, and they did a story on Peewee Kirkland, which was pretty good. That's all I can remember about him, but you can actually go check out this book if y'all want to, and go ahead. This is chapter 9 that I'm checking out now, but you can go on Audible and listen to the whole book. It's called Gangsters of Harlem by Ron. What's his last name? I can't pronounce. I can't even see that shit. Let me take my glasses off. What did that say? By Ron something. Anyway, y'all can go to Audible and listen to the whole book. It's on Audible. But anyway, this is chapter 9. Yeah, it's like shit. If you can make they was only paying basketball players back then $40,000 a year. I mean, it was it was $40,000 for 2 years. So that's $20,000 a year. That ain't shit. Damn, compared to what they making now, huh? But you gotta think though, that's 1968. 1968. The NBA wasn't even that popular back then. 1968. You know what I'm saying? That was the same year that Martin Luther King got killed too. So yeah, they wasn't playing NBA players that big money back then. You know, so he was making more money. You know, a lot of times, especially for back then, they couldn't really deter you from doing crime back then, because if you made more money going to the NBA, I'm pretty sure it was a big deal. But if you're making more money on the street than the NBA, then what's the motivation not to? Well, I guess you wouldn't go to jail, get killed playing in the NBA. But still, if you're talking about financial, I'm making more money on the street than playing on the court. You know, unless you just you really have to truly love the game. See, nowadays that would be stupid, because of course you know, if you're a good player, you're gonna make a couple million in the NBA today. So to go out and try to sell drugs to make what you make in the NBA would be stupid. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, what y'all think about this video, man? Leave your comments and subscribe to Charles and Ezra. Hit that thumbs up button.